The text came at midnight. Just signed the papers to sell Chen Manufacturing. $40 million. Not bad for a company our old man built from scraps. Don't worry, little sister. I'll send you a Christmas card for my new beach house. I stared at Michael's message, my hands steady as I took a screenshot and added it to my growing collection of evidence. My brother always did love to gloat. My name is Julia Chen, and I was about to teach my brother a lesson about the difference between inheritance and earned success. The irony was, if he bothered to attend any board meetings in the past year instead of sailing around the Mediterranean on Dad's old yacht, he might have noticed what I'd been building. But Michael had always been like that, showing up only when it was time to take credit or collect profits. I switched to my email, sending a quick message to our company's CFO. It's time, put phase 1 into action. The response came immediately, already done. He won't know what hit him. 12 hours later, I sat in my office at Chen Manufacturing, watching the morning light filter through floor-to-ceiling windows. This building, these machines humming in the background, the hundreds of employees arriving for their morning shift. It was all part of our parents' legacy. A legacy Michael was trying to sell to the highest bidder. Mom and Dad had built this company from nothing after immigrating from China in the 1980s. They started in a tiny garage, Dad handling the engineering while Mom managed the books. By the time they died in a car accident last year, Chen Manufacturing was supplying precision parts to major automotive companies across 3 continents. My phone buzzed. A call from Lisa, my best friend since college and now our head of legal. Julia, you need to see this. Michael just sent the preliminary sales agreement to the board. The numbers, they're not what he thinks they are. I smiled, opening my laptop, send it over. The document appeared in my inbox moments later. There it was, in black and white. Michael's grandiose plan to sell our family's company to Global Industries, a corporate giant known for buying family businesses and stripping them for parts. What my brother hadn't realized was that over the past year, while he was busy spending company money on luxury cars and younger girlfriends, I'd been quietly restructuring everything. Each board meeting he skipped, each document he signed without reading, brought me one step closer to protecting what our parents had built. Did you see page 17? Lisa asked, still on the line. The shared distribution clause? Yes, he still thinks he controls 51% of the company because he's the eldest son. Lisa's laugh was sharp. Should we tell him about the trust conversion? Not yet. Let him figure it out when he tries to close the deal. After hanging up, I walked through the factory floor, greeting employees by name. Unlike Michael, who couldn't tell a laugh from a drill press, I'd spent every summer here since I was 16, learning every aspect of the business from the ground up. Dad used to say, success isn't inherited, it's earned. Michael never understood that. He thought being the firstborn son entitled him to everything. The company, the respect, the legacy. He'd never bothered to learn the business, assuming it would simply fall into his lap. My phone buzzed again, this time with a message from Michael. Board meeting tomorrow at 9. Try not to embarrass yourself when I announce the sale. I typed back, wouldn't miss it. That evening, I met with key members of our management team at my house. The same house where Mom and Dad had hosted countless company celebrations, where they'd taught me the value of treating employees like family. Everything's in place, reported Tom, our operations manager. The audit records, the trust documents, everything. And the employees? I asked. Sarah from HR smiled. They're ready. Every single one of them signed the statement. I looked around the room at these people who'd worked alongside my parents for decades, who'd watched Michael's increasingly erratic behavior over the past year with growing concern. Tomorrow's going to be difficult, I said. Are you all sure about this? Tom spoke first, his voice firm. Your parents didn't build this company to have it torn apart by Global Industries. We're with you. The next morning, I arrived early at the office, watching the sunrise paint the Chen Manufacturing sign in shades of gold. Mom had designed that sign herself, incorporating elements that symbolized both our Chinese heritage and American dreams. At 8:45, Michael strutted into the building, flanked by representatives from Global Industries. He'd gotten his hair cut, bought a new suit, playing the role of successful businessman for his potential buyers. Julie, he called out, using the nickname he knew I hated. Ready to watch Big Brother make history? I met his smug smile with a calm one of my own. Absolutely. The boardroom filled quickly. Company executives, legal representatives, and the global industries team all taking their seats. Michael stood at the head of the table, practically bouncing with self-importance. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, today marks a new chapter for Chen Manufacturing. I'm pleased to announce that Global Industries has agreed to purchase our company for $40 million. He paused, clearly expecting applause. None came. The paperwork is ready, he continued, slightly flustered. As majority shareholder and CEO, I'm sorry, I interrupted, standing up. But there seems to be some confusion about that. Michael's smile flickered. About what? Your position. You're not the CEO, Michael. You haven't been for 6 months. The room went silent as I pulled out a folder and began distributing documents. What are you talking about? Michael demanded, his face reddening. Of course I'm the CEO. Dad left me in charge. Dad left you as interim CEO. I corrected, subject to board approval and contingent on your active participation in company management. Would you like to know how many board meetings you've attended in the past year? The Global Industries representatives were flipping through the documents I handed out, their expressions growing increasingly concerned. These attendance records, one of them said, show Mr. Chen has only been present for 2 out of 24 mandatory meetings. Michael waved his hand dismissively. That's just paperwork. I own 51% of this company. I can sell it if I want to. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. I nodded to Lisa, who stood up. Actually, she said, according to the trust conversion executed by your parents before their death, your shares were contingent on meeting certain management participation requirements. Requirements you failed to meet. She turned to the Global Industries team. I'm afraid Mr. Chen no longer has the authority to negotiate this sale. Michael's face went from red to purple. You're lying. This is impossible. I pulled out one final document, the trust agreement our parents had signed 2 months before their accident, after watching Michael's increasingly irresponsible behavior. They knew Michael. They knew you'd try something like this. That's why they put safeguards in place. The Global Industries representatives were already packing up their briefcases, making polite but hasty excuses. This isn't over, Michael snarled, pointing at me. You think you can steal my company? No, Michael. I think I can save our parents' company. There's a difference. As security escorted him from the building, I sat down in our father's old chair, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on my shoulders. Phase 1 was complete, but the real work was just beginning. My phone buzzed, a message from Lisa. Ready for Phase 2? I looked out at the factory floor where employees were gathering, waiting to hear what would happen next. They trusted me, supported my plan, believed in my vision for the company's future. Yes, I replied. It's time to show everyone what Chen Manufacturing can really do. The media coverage started the next day. Family drama at Chen Manufacturing. CEO ousted in failed sale attempt read the headlines. My phone was flooded with calls from reporters, all wanting to know how the quiet younger sister had outmaneuvered her flashy brother. I ignored them all, focusing instead on the message that had just arrived from Michael's lawyer. Our client contests the validity of the trust conversion. Prepare for legal action. I forwarded it to Lisa, who responded immediately, let him try. Your parents made everything ironclad. The next few weeks were a blur of activity. While Michael waged his legal battle, I concentrated on strengthening the company. Every morning, I arrived before sunrise, just like Dad used to do. Every evening, I was the last to leave, reviewing contracts, meeting with team leaders, learning everything I could about where we could improve. You don't have to do everything yourself, Tom said one night, finding me still at my desk at 9 p.m. That's what got Michael in trouble, thinking he had to be the one in control of everything. I looked up from the production reports I was reviewing. I'm not trying to control everything. I'm trying to understand everything. There's a difference. And there was. Unlike Michael, who saw the company as his personal ATM, I saw it as a living thing. Thousands of moving parts that had to work together. Every decision affected real people with real families. A month after the failed sale, I called an all-hands meeting in the main factory floor. Hundreds of employees gathered, their faces a mix of curiosity and concern. Many of you have worked here for decades, I began. You knew my parents, helped them build this company from nothing. When they died, my brother saw that legacy as his birthright. But I see it differently. I clicked to the first slide of my presentation, our new company structure. Starting today, Chen Manufacturing is becoming an employee-owned company. Every full-time employee will receive shares, with additional shares available based on years of service. The room erupted in murmurs. This was what I'd been working on for the past year, transforming the company into something that couldn't be sold out from under the people who'd helped build it. My parents believed in building things that last, I continued. Not just machines, but relationships, community, future. That's what we're going to do together. The applause was deafening. In the back of the room, I saw older employees wiping away tears. They'd known my parents, understood exactly what this meant. Later that afternoon, Lisa rushed into my office. Michael's lawyer just filed an emergency injunction trying to stop the employee ownership transition. They're requesting a hearing next week. I nodded, already prepared for this. Good. Time to show the judge exactly why we did this. The hearing was set for Tuesday morning. I arrived at the courthouse early, dressed in one of Mom's old suits that I'd had tailored. Michael showed up late, looking disheveled, with an expensive lawyer at his side. This is theft, he declared as soon as the judge asked him to explain his position. My sister has stolen my birthright through legal trickery. I sat quietly as his lawyer presented their case, claiming the trust conversion was invalid, that our parents couldn't have intended to disinherit their son. When it was our turn, Lisa stood up. Your Honor, we'd like to present evidence of why the trust conversion was not only valid but necessary. For the next hour, we showed the judge everything. Michael's absences from board meetings, his misuse of company funds, the trail of poor decisions that had nearly bankrupted us twice. But the most damaging evidence came from an unexpected source. We'd like to play a video, Lisa announced, recorded by James and Margaret Chen 6 months before their deaths. Michael's head snapped up as our parents appeared on the courtroom screen. They were sitting in Dad's study, looking serious but determined. If you're watching this, Dad began, it means Michael has tried to sell the company. We knew this day might come. Our son has many qualities, but he never understood what we built here isn't just a business. It's a family. Mom spoke next, her voice gentle but firm. Julia, if you're seeing this, it means you've done what we hoped. Protected not just the company, but the people who make it work. The trust conversion wasn't about punishing your brother. It was about preserving our real legacy. By the time the video ended, Michael had slumped in his chair, all his bluster gone. The judge took only 15 minutes to make his decision. The trust conversion stands, he declared. Furthermore, Mr. Chen's claims of theft are dismissed with prejudice. Outside the courthouse, Michael caught up to me. You've ruined everything, he spat. I could have made us rich. I turned to face him, really looking at my brother for the first time in months. We were already rich, Michael. Not just in money, but in what Mom and Dad built. You just never saw it. So that's it, I get nothing. You get exactly what the trust stipulates, a living allowance, contingent on you seeking employment and counseling. The choice is yours. He stormed off, but I noticed his shoulders were slumped, defeated. For the first time, he looked less like the entitled heir and more like a lost son. Back at the factory, the transformation was already underway. Employee owners walked with new purpose, offering suggestions, taking initiative. We landed 3 major new contracts in the first month alone. 6 months later, I stood on the factory floor again, this time celebrating our most profitable quarter ever. The employee ownership program had energized everyone, leading to innovations and efficiencies we never imagined. Your parents would be proud, Tom said, watching the celebrations. They'd be proud of all of us, I replied. That evening, as I was leaving the office, I found an unexpected visitor waiting in the lobby. Michael. I've been in therapy, he said without preamble, trying to understand everything. I waited, letting him find the words. I never saw it, what Mom and Dad were really building. I just saw the money, the status. But watching what you've done here, he gestured at the bustling factory beyond the windows. I get it now. What do you want, Michael? He pulled out a piece of paper, a job application. I want to learn, really learn from the ground up. If you'll let me. I studied my brother's face, seeing something new there, humility, maybe even wisdom. Start Monday, I said. 6 a.m. sharp. You'll work with Tom in operations, learning every machine, every process. No shortcuts. His smile was different now, smaller but more real. Thank you, Julia. As I watched him leave, I thought about mom and dad, about legacy and learning, about the difference between inheriting something and earning it. The next morning, I arrived at my usual time, before sunrise. The factory was quiet, but not for long. Soon it would pulse with life, with purpose, with the dreams of hundreds of employee owners working to build something lasting. My phone buzzed. A message from Lisa. Did you really hire Michael? Everyone deserves a chance to earn their place, I replied, even him. And that was the real lesson, wasn't it? Success isn't about what you're given. It's about what you build, who you help along the way, and the legacy you choose to create. Dad used to say every machine in the factory had a story. Now I understood. We all have stories. The trick is making sure they're worth telling.
The annual Hamilton family gathering was in full swing at my sister Victoria's mansion when I arrived, deliberately late and dressed in my simple navy pantsuit rather than designer wear like my siblings. "Oh, look who finally made it," Victoria called out, champagne glass in hand. "Amanda, the office worker." Laughter rippled through the gathering of Hamilton elite doctors, lawyers, executives, and entrepreneurs. I was the family disappointment, the one who just worked as an executive assistant at Summit Enterprises. Or so they thought. "Still pushing papers for minimum wage?" my brother James asked, adjusting his Rolex. I smiled, accepting a glass of champagne. "Something like that." My phone buzzed, a message from my actual assistant. "Wall Street Journal story goes live in 10 minutes. Perfect timing." "Amanda," my mother sighed, "when are you going to do something meaningful with your life? Your siblings are all so successful." I glanced around the room at my successful family. Victoria, plastic surgeon to the wealthy. James, hedge fund manager. Michael, tech startup founder. Elizabeth, corporate lawyer. "I'm comfortable where I am," I replied, checking my watch. "Comfortable?" Elizabeth scoffed. "You live in a one-bedroom apartment and drive a Toyota." Another buzz. New York Times alert queued. Speaking of success, my father boomed. "Let's toast to the Hamilton family's newest achievement. James just closed a deal to acquire premium properties downtown portfolio." James raised his glass. 15 buildings, prime locations. "Once the paperwork clears next week, Hamilton Investments will control the best real estate in the city." I hid my smile behind my champagne. 3, 2, 1. Phones started buzzing throughout the room. News alerts, messages, emails, all at once. "What the?" James stared at his screen. "Oh my God," Victoria gasped. Elizabeth dropped her phone. The Wall Street Journal headline flashed across everyone's devices. Summit Enterprises CEO revealed. Mystery billionaire owns half of Manhattan. Below it, my corporate headshot smiled back at them. This is a mistake," my father stammered. "No mistake." I set down my champagne. Summit Enterprises owns premium properties. Has for the past 5 years. Along with about 60 other prime real estate holdings in Manhattan. "But you're an assistant," James protested. "Executive assistant?" I laughed. "I'm the CEO. Have been since I founded Summit 10 years ago. Right after you all mocked my business degree from State College instead of Yale." "That's impossible," Victoria whispered. "Summit is worth 12 billion as of this morning's valuation," I finished. "Though that might go up once the market processes today's news." My phone buzzed again, more headlines breaking. Amanda Hamilton, from hidden billionaire to real estate queen. Summit Enterprises controls Manhattan's prime properties. Hamilton Investments deal blocked by surprise owner. The premium properties deal, James realized, face pale. "You knew that you were trying to buy buildings I already owned?" I smiled. "Of course. I've known about every brilliant move you've planned. Hard to compete with someone when you don't know they exist, isn't it?" The room had fallen silent, all eyes fixed on me as years of carefully maintained deception unraveled. "But, your apartment, your car?" Elizabeth sputtered. "Excellent camouflage, weren't they?" I pulled out my phone, showing them Summit's portfolio. "While you were all flaunting your wealth, I was quietly building an empire. Every time you mocked my simple life, I bought another building, another company, another piece of the city." "Why keep it secret?" my mother demanded. "Because watching you underestimate me was far too entertaining." I scrolled through more headlines. And much better for business. Do you know how many deals I've gotten because people thought they were negotiating with a powerless assistant? James grabbed his phone, frantically calling his office. The premium properties deal can't fall through. Our investors already know, I interrupted. Your stock is down 15% in after-hours trading. Amazing how quickly the market reacts when they realize you've been outmaneuvered by your underachieving sister. Victoria collapsed onto her designer sofa. All those meetings at Summit, when I was trying to lease space for my new clinic. Were you talking to my actual assistant? I confirmed, while I watched from my private elevator. You were quite rude to her, by the way. That's why your lease application was denied. You can't do this, my father stepped forward. We're family. Family. I pulled up a recording on my phone, last year's Christmas dinner. Their voices filled the room. Just an office worker. No ambition. Embarrassment to the Hamilton name. Funny thing about family, I continued, stopping the playback. They never see what's right in front of them when they're too busy looking down their noses. My phone buzzed again, Bloomberg requesting an interview. Forbes wanting a cover story. Wall Street analysts demanding meetings. Your father's right, my mother tried. Family should stick together. Now that we know about your success. Now that I'm worth acknowledging? I cut her off. Now that the daughter you dismissed as worthless turns out to be worth billions? We can work together, James suggested desperately. Hamilton Investments and Summit Enterprises already are working together, I smiled. Summit owns the building your company operates from, along with most of your subsidiary offices. Your next rent review is, oh look at that, next month. The color drained from his face. In fact, I continued, pulling up more data. Summit owns properties currently leased by Victoria's clinics, Elizabeth's law firm, and Michael's tech campuses. Interesting coincidence, isn't it? You're our landlord? Elizabeth whispered. Among other things, Summit also holds controlling interests in several companies you do business with. Your suppliers, your service providers. I paused for effect. Your banks. The silence was deafening. So you see, I picked up my champagne again. I didn't need to prove myself to the Hamilton family. I needed to own them. And now I do. What do you want? My father asked quietly. Want? I laughed. I want you all to wake up every morning knowing that your disappointment of a daughter controls your destiny. That every time you write a rent check, sign a contract, or make a business deal, you're probably doing it with a company I own. My phone buzzed one final time, a photo from my real assistant. The Summit Enterprises logo being unveiled on what was formerly the Hamilton building. Now if you'll excuse me, I headed for the door. I have a few interviews to give. About how I built a billion-dollar empire while my family was too busy mocking my job to notice. Amanda, wait, Victoria called out. I turned back. Oh, and Victoria. About your mansion. You might want to check who owns your mortgage. Summit acquired your bank last week. As I walked out, I heard James's phone ring, probably his investors demanding explanations. Elizabeth was already calling her law firm partners. And my parents stood frozen, watching their disappointment daughter step into her waiting Rolls-Royce. Sometimes the best revenge isn't telling people you're successful. It's letting them discover just how badly they underestimated you. And the Hamilton family was about to discover just how expensive underestimation could be. The morning after my revelation, Manhattan's business world was in chaos. Summit Enterprises stock soared while Hamilton Investments plummeted. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since I left the party. I sat in my real office, the entire top floor of the Summit Tower, watching the sunrise over my city. My actual assistant, Sarah, entered with a stack of newspapers. You might enjoy these, she smiled, spreading them across my desk. Hidden Billionaire. The Amanda Hamilton Story. Summit Enterprises reveals true family shocked. Hamilton dynasty rocked by sister's secret empire. From mocked to mogul, Manhattan's stealth billionaire. And these just arrived. She handed me a pile of messages. Your family has been quite persistent. I skimmed through them. Victoria, please call. We need to talk about my mortgage. James, our investors are panicking. Need meeting ASAP. Elizabeth, legal implications of lease agreements? Mother, darling, let's have breakfast. Clear the air. Father, family emergency meeting. Your presence required. Mark them all as read, I instructed Sarah. And how's the Hamilton building transformation coming along? She pulled up the security feeds. Workers were replacing every trace of the Hamilton name with Summit's logo. In the lobby, James stood arguing with security who now worked for me. Should I let him up? Sarah asked. No, I smiled, watching his frustrated gestures. Let him experience what it feels like to be denied access. Like when he had me removed from Hamilton Investments offices 5 years ago. My phone rang. Elizabeth's law firm. Probably realizing that their office lease, building mortgage, and major client contracts were all controlled by Summit subsidiaries. Ms. Hamilton, Sarah announced, CNN is here for your interview. Perfect timing. I stood, straightening my designer suit. No more navy pantsuit camouflage. Let's show the world what a mere office worker can accomplish. The interviewer set up in my office, backdrop of Manhattan's skyline behind me, a skyline increasingly dominated by Summit properties. Ms. Hamilton, she began, your revelation has shocked the business world. How did you manage to build such an empire in secret? It's amazing what people don't see when they've decided you're not worth watching, I replied. My family's dismissal of my career was actually my greatest advantage. While they were busy showing off their modest successes, I was quietly buying the buildings they worked in. Speaking of buildings, she checked her notes. Summit now controls approximately 40% of Manhattan's prime real estate? 45% as of this morning, I corrected. We just acquired the Henderson portfolio. Another property my brother James was pursuing, actually. My phone buzzed. James had just learned about Henderson. His company's stock dropped another 10%. Your family must be reeling, the interviewer pressed. How have they reacted? They're adjusting to the new reality, I smiled. The reality that their disappointment daughter now owns their office buildings, holds their mortgages, and controls their business destinies. Security called up. Victoria had arrived, demanding to discuss her clinic leases. Ms. Hamilton, Sarah interrupted smoothly, your 10 a.m. acquisition meeting is ready. I turned back to the interviewer. Would you like to witness how a mere office worker conducts business? The acquisition team filed in lawyers, bankers, analysts. On the video screen, James's face appeared, along with his board of directors. Thank you for joining us, I began. Let's discuss the terms of Summit's tender offer for Hamilton Investments. James's jaw dropped. Tender offer? Yes, I smiled at the camera. Summit Enterprises is offering to acquire Hamilton Investments. At a very generous 30% below current market value, given your recent difficulties. You can't do this, he protested. Actually, I can. Summit already owns 15% of your shares through various subsidiaries. Your plummeting stock price has triggered loan covenants with banks that, coincidentally, Summit also owns. I paused for effect. You need capital immediately or you default. I'm offering a solution. The interviewer watched, fascinated, as I dismantled my brother's company piece by piece. This is corporate terrorism, James sputtered. No, I corrected. This is business. The business you claimed I never understood. The success you said I'd never achieve. I turned to his board members. You have 1 hour to accept the offer before I call your loans. As James's board erupted in argument, my phone buzzed again. Victoria had been joined by Elizabeth and my parents in the lobby. Sarah, I called, please inform my family that I'm busy conducting business. They can make appointments through proper channels. Like we had to do? She asked with a knowing smile. Exactly. I turned back to the cameras. Now, shall we discuss how a simple office worker built Manhattan's largest real estate empire while her family wasn't watching? Sometimes the best revenge isn't just succeeding, it's succeeding so spectacularly that your doubters become your tenants, your mockery becomes your motivation, and your family's empire becomes just another acquisition in your portfolio. By sunset, Manhattan's business landscape had shifted dramatically. Hamilton Investments Board had accepted Summit's tender offer. My family remained stranded in the lobby, and my net worth had increased by another $1 billion thanks to the market's reaction. Final tallies for the day, Sarah reported, entering my office with a data tablet. Summit stock up 67%, 3 major acquisitions completed, and 17 interview requests from major media outlets. I watched the electronic ticker on Summit Tower flash the day's headlines across Manhattan. Summit acquires Hamilton Investments. Mystery billionaire expands empire. Amanda Hamilton, Manhattan's new power broker. And my family? I asked, though I could see them through the security feeds, still clustered in the lobby after 8 hours. Your father's had 2 calls with his crisis management team. Your brother James is meeting with his soon-to-be former board. Victoria's trying to secure emergency financing for her clinics, and Elizabeth's law firm partners are voting on her future given the conflict of interest. I smiled, remembering all the family dinners where they'd question my career choices. Any messages worth noting? Sarah filtered through her tablet. Your mother's asked about your availability for their annual charity gala next month. Apparently, they'd like to honor you as Businesswoman of the Year. How convenient, I laughed. Last year they didn't even invite me because my career achievements weren't significant enough to mention. My phone buzzed, a message from James. You've made your point. Let's talk. Should I finally let them up? Sarah asked. I considered it, watching them through the cameras. They looked exhausted, disheveled, so different from their usual polished appearances. Put them in conference room B. Let them wait another hour. While they waited, I conducted more business. Acquired 2 more buildings. Signed 3 major development deals. Approved lease terminations for companies that had supported Hamilton Investments' failed attempts to compete with Summit. Finally, as the sun set over Manhattan, I decided to face my family. Walking into conference room B, I found them exactly as I'd expected, angry, frustrated, and finally ready to acknowledge my existence. 8 hours. My father stood up. You made us wait 8 hours. I checked my watch. I made you wait 10 years. The 8 hours were just a bonus. Elizabeth snapped. We're family. Family. I showed years of footage. Mockery, sabotage, dismissal. Victoria whispered, we were wrong. Yes, I said, taking their usual seat. Now you need me, loans, deals, leases. Funny, isn't it? I revealed the truth. Victoria's clinics, Elizabeth's clients, James's investments, all owned by my company, Summit. For 10 years I built this empire while you laughed, I said. Breaking news. Hamilton Empire absorbed by Summit. Here's the deal, I told them. Summit buys your businesses cheap. You work under my team or lose everything. If we refuse? Good luck finding space in Manhattan I don't control. Forbes buzzed. Cover story. Manhattan's Shadow Queen. You have until tomorrow, I said, walking out. Amanda, we're proud of you now, my mother called. That's the problem, you're 10 years late. I returned to my office. Manhattan's lights gleamed. Every building, every deal, every success. Mine. The annual Johnson family reunion was in full swing at Uncle Peter's lakeside mansion, complete with its usual mix of judgmental comments and not-so-subtle competition. The sprawling backyard was dotted with relatives showing off their latest luxury purchases and bragging about their children's achievements. I sat in a corner of the patio, quietly scrolling through my phone, monitoring user metrics and engagement rates while my cousins paraded around in designer outfits. Still playing with your little internet stuff, Sarah? Aunt Margaret's voice dripped with condescension as she approached, martini in hand. You know, my Thomas just made junior partner at Goldman Sachs. A real career. I nodded absently, approving a server upgrade that would affect millions of users across Southeast Asia. That's nice, Aunt Margaret. When are you going to get a real job? Uncle Peter joined in, his booming voice drawing attention from nearby relatives. All this social media nonsense. It's not a proper career for someone with your education. The irony of him saying this while checking his Facebook notifications wasn't lost on me. I'm doing fine, I said, hiding a smile as I watched our latest algorithm adjustment increase user engagement by 12% in real time. Fine. My cousin Rachel scoffed, flashing her new engagement ring. You're still living in that tiny apartment driving that old Toyota. Meanwhile, my James just bought us a penthouse in Manhattan. More relatives drifted over, eager to join the familiar sport of criticizing the family disappointment. The one who'd turned down a prestigious law firm position to work on some mysterious internet project. What do you even do all day? Uncle Peter demanded. Just post pictures and tweets? Before I could answer, Every phone in the gathering suddenly buzzed simultaneously. Breaking news alerts. My heart rate picked up slightly. The embargo had lifted right on schedule. "Oh my God," Rachel gasped, staring at her screen. "The mystery founder of Global Connect has finally been revealed." $8 billion net worth, Aunt Margaret whispered, her martini forgotten. Youngest self-made tech billionaire. Uncle Peter was frantically scrolling through the article. Says they've been operating in secret for years, revolutionizing social media algorithms and user engagement metrics. I continued tapping on my phone, adjusting parameters for our West Coast servers. "The Asian markets are opening soon," I said to no one in particular. "Might want to watch the stock price." The silence that followed was deafening. The next few minutes were a chaotic symphony of notifications as more news alerts flooded everyone's phones. My face, the same one they'd been criticizing moments ago for looking tired and unstylish, was now appearing on every major financial news network. Sarah Johnson, 28, revealed as the founder and CEO of Global Connect, the revolutionary social media analytics platform valued at over $40 billion, cousin Rachel read aloud, her voice shaking. Known for its groundbreaking AI-driven engagement algorithms, Global Connect powers 80% of major social networks worldwide. Uncle Peter had gone from red-faced criticism to ghostly pale in record time. But you work from your apartment." "My apartment." I finally looked up from my phone, which takes up the entire top floor of the building and houses one of our main development labs. "The old Toyota has a custom AI system that's more advanced than most spacecraft. But yes, Uncle Peter, I just play with internet stuff all day." Aunt Margaret collapsed into a nearby chair, her manicured hand clutching her chest. "All those times we invited you to networking events were when I was closing deals with Silicon Valley's biggest names," I finished. "Those emergency work calls during family dinners? Usually board meetings with our international investors." My cousin Thomas, the Goldman Sachs success story, was frantically pulling up Global Connect's stock charts on his phone. "This is impossible. The growth rate, the market penetration, is exactly why your firm tried to acquire us last month," I said casually. "That rejection letter you personally delivered to our unknown founder actually came to my desk. Your analysis was quite thorough, though you missed our expansion into quantum computing." The color drained from Thomas's face as he realized he'd accidentally snubbed a client worth billions. More relatives were rushing over now, phones extended like offerings, showing headlines that ranged from "tech's best-kept secret revealed" to "mystery billionaire was hidden in plain sight." "But why keep it secret?" Rachel demanded, her new engagement ring suddenly looking less impressive. "Why let us think you were struggling?" I stood up, smoothing my simple black dress, the one they'd earlier dismissed as off the rack, despite it being a one-of-a-kind piece from a designer who exclusively clothed tech billionaires. "Because success isn't about mansions or fancy cars or bragging at family reunions," I said, watching my net worth tick up another few million as Asian markets reacted to the news. "It's about creating something that changes the world." While you were all competing over who had the biggest house or most prestigious job title, I was building technology that connects billions of people. A flurry of notifications lit up my phone. The company's executive team requesting emergency meetings, reporters clamoring for interviews, and Mark Zuckerberg himself trying to schedule a call. I silenced them all with a gesture that my relatives now watched with newfound fascination. "The Toyota," Uncle Peter muttered, still processing. "I made fun of your Toyota just last Christmas. The car that's powered by our proprietary AI system?" I raised an eyebrow. "The one that major automotive companies are currently bidding billions to license?" "Yes, I remember your comments about how I should upgrade to a real luxury vehicle." Cousin Jessica, who'd spent the last hour showing off her new Cartier bracelet, suddenly looked like she might faint. "Those coding sessions you were always doing during family vacations. We're building the foundation for what's now the most advanced social media analytics platform in the world." I pulled up a holographic display from my watch, another prototype the family had mocked as a cheap smartwatch. Speaking of which, the display showed a real-time visualization of their social media activity during the reunion. Every dismissive comment about my career, every boast about their own achievements, Every subtle dig at my lifestyle. All captured and analyzed by my algorithms. Amazing how quickly online behavior changes when news breaks, I observed, watching their social media posts transform from condescending remarks about my internet job to proud claims of family connection. Our sentiment analysis algorithms caught over 200 status updates from this gathering alone, shifting from negative to positive in 3 minutes flat. That might be a new record. Aunt Margaret was frantically deleting her earlier Facebook posts. Sarah dear, about what I said regarding proper careers. Save it, I cut her off gently. Your posts are already archived in our global database, along with everyone else's. I gestured around the suddenly quiet gathering. Did you never wonder why my little internet project could predict social trends with 99.9% accuracy? We've been analyzing real-world social interactions like this reunion for years. Thomas was still staring at his phone, now showing Global Connect's partnership announcements rolling out across all major tech news sites. The Goldman analysis. We estimated your user base at 100 million. Try 3 billion, I corrected him. Your models missed our shadow networks and proxy engagements. A common mistake when you're too focused on traditional metrics. Rachel had sunk into a chair, her giant engagement ring now hidden in her lap. All those times you couldn't attend my shopping trips because of work meetings were actually board meetings with some of the world's largest tech companies, I nodded. Though I doubt the Chanel bags you bought would have impressed our Saudi investors much anyway. The catering staff, who I'd quietly hired to replace Uncle Peter's usual service, though he hadn't noticed, began serving champagne. Not the domestic brand he favored, but the same ultra-rare vintage I'd had flown in for our last billion-dollar acquisition celebration. To success, I raised my glass, watching my net worth tick up another 100 million as European markets opened. However you choose to define it. The sun was setting over Uncle Peter's lake, casting a golden glow that made everything look more expensive than it was, a fitting metaphor for the family's carefully maintained facade of success. The reunion had transformed into an impromptu press event, with relatives alternating between managing their suddenly viral social media posts and trying to position themselves closer to me. My phone buzzed again, this time with a message that made me smile. Something amusing? Thomas asked eagerly, having appointed himself my unofficial assistant in the last hour. Just Elon, I said casually, watching their eyes widen, wondering if I'm still joining him for lunch tomorrow to discuss that Mars communication project. Before anyone could respond, a sleek black helicopter appeared over the lake, bearing the Global Connect logo. My actual assistant, Maya, stepped out as it landed on Uncle Peter's pristine lawn, carrying a holographic tablet. Ms. Johnson, she said professionally, ignoring the gawking relatives. The board is requesting an emergency meeting. Also, the president would like to reschedule your call about the National AI Initiative. The president? Aunt Margaret choked on her fourth martini of the evening. Tell him Thursday works better, I replied, watching my uncle's prized lawn get blown about by the helicopter's rotors. And remind him that my position on AI regulation hasn't changed. Maya nodded, her augmented reality contact lenses flickering as she updated my schedule. The Time magazine cover shoot has been moved up. They're calling it The Silent Revolution, How Sarah Johnson Changed the Internet Without Anyone Noticing. Rachel, who'd once mocked my preference for simple clothes, was now photographing my outfit from multiple angles, probably for her fashion blog. The irony that her blog's recommendation algorithm was powered by my technology seemed lost on her. Speaking of noticing things, I said, pulling up another holographic display, let's talk about what happens next. The display showed a complex web of connections, every family member's digital footprint, financial status, and career trajectory, all analyzed by my AI. Global Connect isn't just a social media company, I explained, watching their faces as they recognized their own data nodes. We're a human connection prediction engine. We don't just track what people do online. We understand why they do it. Uncle Peter shifted uncomfortably as his node highlighted, showing his company's declining market share. Sarah, about what I said regarding real jobs. Your company's struggling, I continued calmly. The AI predicted it 3 years ago when you refused to adapt to digital transformation. But it also shows potential for recovery, with the right guidance. The display shifted, showing future projections and opportunity matrices. Every family member's node pulsed with unrealized potential and warnings. I'm offering each of you a choice, I said, gesturing to Maya, who began distributing sleek black folders. Inside these folders are two things: an analysis of where your current path leads, and an opportunity to be part of what comes next. What comes next? Thomas asked, already opening his folder eagerly. The next phase of Global Connect. We're not just reshaping social media anymore. We're rebuilding how human beings connect, work, and create value. I paused as another $1 billion was added to my net worth from the European markets. But it requires something this family has always struggled with: humility and willingness to learn. The folders contained personalized AI-generated reports that laid bare every mistake, missed opportunity, and false assumption each family member had made. Alongside these brutal truths were detailed paths to redemption, roles within Global Connect's expanding empire that would utilize their actual talents rather than their imagined ones. This is devastating, Rachel whispered, staring at her report. It's honest, I corrected. Something this family could use more of. Maya's lenses flickered again. Ms. Johnson, Mr. Zuckerberg is quite insistent about that call. Tell him my family takes priority today, I said, earning grateful looks that I met with measured skepticism. Though he might be interested in the behavioral data we've gathered here. The sun had fully set now, and the helicopter's lights cast long shadows across the lawn. In the distance I could see news vans gathering at the property gate, held back by the security team I'd quietly put in place hours ago. Why give us another chance? Uncle Peter asked finally, his earlier arrogance replaced by something approaching understanding. After how we treated you. I stood up, straightening my dress as Maya prepared the helicopter for departure. Because success means nothing if you can't lift others up along the way. But, I added, seeing hope bloom in their eyes, that doesn't mean the path will be easy. The holographic display shifted one final time, showing a countdown clock. You have 48 hours to decide. Choose to join us and you'll need to earn your place through actual merit, not family connection. Decline and, well, the AI has some interesting predictions about your 5-year trajectories. As if on cue, their phones buzzed again. More breaking news about Global Connect's expanding influence and my growing net worth. The numbers were almost incomprehensible now, especially to a family that had thought a lakeside mansion was the height of success. Time to go, Maya announced. The Tokyo markets are opening soon. I headed toward the helicopter, then paused. Oh, and one more thing. I turned back to my stunned relatives. That little internet stuff I was always working on? It recorded everything said at every family gathering for the past 5 years. The AI used it to perfect its human behavior prediction models. So, thanks for the data. The look on their faces as I boarded the helicopter was worth more than all the billions in my account. As the helicopter lifted off, I watched through its smart glass windows as my family members below frantically pored over their folders. The AI's predictive display showed me their real-time emotional states: shock, regret, hope, fear, all exactly as the algorithm had forecast. Maya, I called over the engine noise, show me the family response matrix. A complex web of data appeared before me, tracking every family member's digital reactions to the day's revelations. Uncle Peter was already on the phone with his board of directors, his voice stress patterns indicating panic. Cousin Rachel had begun deleting years of condescending social media posts about traditional careers. Thomas was desperately emailing his Goldman Sachs superiors, trying to explain how he'd missed evaluating the century's biggest tech success. Their online behavior patterns are shifting exactly as predicted, Maya noted, her AR lenses processing the data. 89% alignment with the AI's social response model. I nodded, watching as my net worth ticked up another $1 billion. The Asian markets were reacting even more strongly than anticipated to the revelation of Global Connect's true ownership. Ms. Johnson, Maya's voice took on a more personal tone. Your mother is calling. My throat tightened slightly. Mom, the quiet librarian who'd supported my internet hobby when everyone else mocked it. Who'd secretly learned coding at night so she could understand what I was building. Who'd never once doubted me, even when I couldn't tell her what I was really creating. Put her through, I said softly. Sarah. Mom's voice came through. I saw the news. All those nights in the basement. We were building something bigger than anyone imagined, I said. She laughed with pride and tears. Your father would be proud. He always said you'd change the world. Dad died before Global Connect launched, but I still listed him as co-inventor. There's more, I said. Check your email. She gasped. A new AI-powered library system. Dad's dream of free education now real. You'll lead it. Me? She whispered. Who better? We flew toward Global Connect Tower. Tomorrow's headlines flashed. My secret empire revealed, education revolution announced. Calls from family poured in. Apologies, business offers, claims they always believed. I sent them all the same report. Only those who read it fully might have a role. As we landed, I told Maya to bill Uncle Peter for lawn damage. Already done. Rachel texted. She'd finally read my old plan. We should have listened. I smiled. Success isn't just proving people wrong. It's showing them a better way. The corner office of Wilson Global Enterprises gleamed in the morning light as I adjusted my CEO nameplate. 6 years ago in this same building, my father had called me into his much smaller office to fire me from my junior analyst position. You'll never succeed in finance, Alexandra, he'd said, sliding my termination papers across his desk. You don't have what it takes. Maybe try something simpler. Now, at 32, I controlled one of the largest financial empires in the country. My recent string of acquisitions had caught everyone by surprise, especially the struggling Morgan & Sons Finance, where my father still worked as a senior vice president, unaware that his company was about to become my latest subsidiary. Ms. Wilson, my assistant Patricia's voice came through the intercom. The final paperwork for the Morgan & Sons acquisition has arrived. I smiled, remembering my father's dismissive words. After he'd fired me, I'd changed my mother's maiden name, Wilson, and started from scratch. A small investment firm that grew into something nobody, especially my father, could have predicted. The merger meeting is scheduled for 2 p.m., Patricia continued. All Morgan & Sons executives will be present, including Senior VP Richard Foster. My father. He still didn't know. None of them did. The merger had been negotiated through intermediaries. The true identity of Wilson Global CO kept carefully hidden. They thought they were meeting an old money patriarch named Wilson, not the failure they'd fired 6 years ago. My phone buzzed, a text from my mother. Your father's nervous about meeting his new boss today. Be kind to him, Alexandra. Mom was the only one who knew my secret. She'd been there the day Dad fired me, had watched me rebuild myself from nothing. When I'd made my first $1 million, she'd cried. When I'd hit $1 billion, she just smiled and said, I always knew. I opened my laptop to review Morgan & Sons financials. The company had been floundering for years, making exactly the mistakes I'd warned them about when I was a junior analyst. Their rejection of digital transformation, their resistance to emerging markets, everything I'd highlighted in my final presentation before being fired. Patricia, I called through the intercom, is everything ready for the meeting? Yes, Ms. Wilson. The contracts are prepared, the boardroom is set, and security has been briefed. Also, your father's old termination letter has been framed as requested. That letter had become my motivation, fuel for every late night and early morning. I'd kept it in my desk drawer as I built Wilson Global piece by piece, a reminder of why I couldn't fail. The morning passed quickly as I finalized the acquisition details. By 1:30, Patricia reported that the Morgan & Sons executives had arrived and were waiting in the conference room. They're quite impressed with the building, she noted with a slight smirk. Especially Mr. Foster. He mentioned that his daughter used to work in finance but couldn't handle it. I stood, smoothing my Armani suit. Let them wait a few more minutes. I want to make an entrance they'll never forget. Through the conference room's glass walls, I could see them, 6 men in expensive suits, my father among them, all looking nervous. They had no idea that their company's fate rested in the hands of someone they'd once dismissed. My mother's last text arrived. Remember, success is the best revenge. At exactly 2 p.m. I gathered my files and nodded to Patricia. It was time to show my father exactly what his failure of a daughter had become. Ready to announce you, Ms. Wilson, Patricia said, her hand on the conference room door. I thought about the last 6 years. The late nights, the strategic plays, the careful hiding of my identity. All leading to this moment. Let's show them what success really looks like, I said, stepping forward as Patricia opened the door. The room fell silent as I entered. 6 pairs of eyes widened in shock. But I only cared about one reaction, my father's face going completely white as he recognized his new boss. His coffee cup slipped from his hand, shattering on the polished floor. "Gentlemen," I said calmly, taking my seat at the head of the table. "I'm Alexandra Wilson, CEO of Wilson Global Enterprises. And as of today, your new owner." The silence in the conference room was deafening. Coffee from my father's shattered cup spread slowly across the polished floor, but no one moved to clean it up. All eyes were fixed on me, the woman they'd dismissed as incapable 6 years ago. This must be some mistake," stuttered Harold Barnes, Morgan & Sons CFO. "We were told we'd be meeting with Mr. Wilson." "There is no Mr. Wilson," I replied, opening my laptop. "Wilson Global Enterprises was built by me from the ground up." I turned to my father, whose face had progressed from white to gray. "Isn't that right, Dad?" The other executive's head snapped toward him so fast I heard neck joints crack. "Dad," repeated Thomas Chin, the operations director. "Richard, this is your Alexandra," my father finally managed, his voice barely a whisper. You're Wilson Global." I pulled up the acquisition contract on the room's main screen. "The same daughter you fired for lacking business instinct. The one who didn't have what it takes. Would you like to see your exact words?" I nodded to Patricia, who distributed copies of my old termination letter to everyone at the table. "In light of your inability to grasp basic financial concepts," Barnes read aloud, then stopped, looking uncomfortable. "Please continue," I said smoothly. "I believe the next part is particularly interesting. Your continued employment would be a liability to Morgan & Sons. Perhaps a less demanding career path would be more suitable for your limited capabilities." My father seemed to shrink in his chair as his colleagues read his words from 6 years ago. I let the moment stretch, remembering all the nights I'd read that letter, using the anger and hurt as fuel to build my empire. "Now," I continued, pulling up Morgan & Sons' financial reports, "let's discuss why you're all here. Your company is failing. The same issues I identified 6 years ago have finally caught up with you." I highlighted the declining revenue charts, the missed opportunities, the failed strategies. Everything I'd warned them about in my final presentation as a junior analyst. Digital transformation, emerging markets, algorithmic trading, all opportunities you dismissed. Now you're losing millions while your competitors, many of whom are already Wilson Global subsidiaries, are thriving. "But your acquisition offer," Thomas Chin interjected, "it's well above market value. Because I'm not just buying your company, gentlemen. I'm buying the satisfaction of proving every dismissive comment, every condescending smile, every doubt about my capabilities completely wrong." Patricia entered with a new stack of documents, the complete restructuring plan I'd prepared. The same basic strategy I'd proposed 6 years ago, updated and expanded. "Your choice is simple," I continued. "Accept the merger and keep your jobs under my leadership and new protocols, or decline and watch your company collapse within 6 months. Either way, I win." "You planned this," my father finally spoke, his voice hoarse. "All of it. Wilson Global's strategic acquisitions, the market pressure on our company, the timing. I learned from the best, Dad. You taught me that business is ruthless. That only the strong survive." I smiled, remembering his words. "Though I doubt this is what you meant when you told me to find my place in the world." The room fell silent again as the executives studied the documents before them. 6 years of failure versus my offer of salvation, with a healthy dose of humble pie. "The terms are generous," Barnes admitted, looking through the contract. "But the restructuring plan is non-negotiable," I finished. "You need my company more than we need yours. Your shareholders know it. Your board knows it. And now you know it." My phone buzzed, a text from Mom. "Your father just texted me. He's in shock. Be merciful." I looked at my father, seeing not the intimidating man who'd fired me, but someone who'd been proven catastrophically wrong. His hands trembled as he reached for the contract. "One more thing," I added, pressing a button on my laptop. The screen changed to show a familiar document. "I'm going to need my termination letter back. The original copy. I have a special frame waiting for it in my office." The other executives shifted uncomfortably as my father nodded slowly, defeated. It's in my office. Patricia will collect it. Along with everything else from your office. His head snapped up. What? Oh, did I forget to mention? As part of the restructuring, all senior management positions are being reviewed. Starting with Senior Vice President of Strategic Development. The irony wasn't lost on anyone in the room. The position he deemed me unqualified for would now be filled by someone of my choosing. You're firing me? He asked, his voice barely audible. I stood, smoothing my suit. No, Dad. I'm giving you the opportunity to explore a less demanding career path. One better suited to your limited capabilities. The next hour passed in a blur of signatures and legal formalities. One by one, the executives signed the merger documents, their earlier confidence replaced by a quiet acceptance of their new reality. My father signed last, his hand shaking as he passed the contract back to Patricia. Before we conclude, I announced, I want to address the elephant in the room. Yes, I'm Richard Foster's daughter. As he fired me 6 years ago. And yes, I built Wilson Global specifically to prove him wrong. I paused, letting my words sink in. But this isn't about revenge. I clicked to the next slide, revealing Wilson Global's impressive portfolio. This is about success. About vision. About seeing opportunities that others dismiss. Standing, I walked around the table, my heels clicking on the polished floor. Morgan & Sons will be completely restructured. Those who can adapt will stay. Those who can't. I glanced at my father, will be given their chance to explore other opportunities. Alexandra, my father finally spoke, his voice strained. I was wrong. Yes, you were, I replied calmly. About many things. But mostly about me. Patricia entered with a sleek folder. The press release is ready, Ms. Wilson. Shall I proceed? Wait, my father interjected. The press, everyone will know. That you fired your own daughter who then became your boss? I smiled. That's not just news, Dad. That's a headline. The other executives gathered their things, eager to escape the tension. As they filed out, Thomason paused. For what it's worth, Ms. Wilson, your original proposal from 6 years ago. I voted to keep you. After they left, only my father remained, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. What happens now? He asked. I pressed the intercom. Patricia, please bring in the other envelope. She returned with a single document. Not another termination letter, but something else entirely. A choice, I explained, sliding it across the table. You can leave with a generous severance package or... I tapped the document. You can take an entry-level position in our Asia division. Start fresh. Learn the business the right way. He stared at the paper, then at me. You'd give me a second chance? After everything. Mom always said success is the best revenge, I said quietly. But real success means knowing when to stop fighting. Just then my phone buzzed with a message from her. Dinner tonight? Your treat, CO. I looked over at my father, still staring at the signed document in front of him, his future laid bare. The Asia division comes with a mentor program, I added. Every junior analyst gets one-on-one guidance from a senior exec. You'll be reporting to me. His eyes widened. You'd teach me everything you should have learned years ago. Everything you once dismissed from me. I gathered my files. You have until tomorrow to decide. As I walked toward the door, he called after me. Alexandra, I'm sorry. For everything. I paused, then turned. Prove it. Not with words, with action. That's what leadership really looks like. Walking back to my office, I passed the photo wall. Images of Wilson Global's climb from a single rented space to international expansion. Each frame marked a chapter in the story that turned Richard Foster's disappointment into a CEO. Patricia met me at my office door. Your mother's on line 1. And the press release, it's gone viral. I picked up the phone, gazing out over the skyline. Hi, Mom. It's done. He knows now. Everything's going to change. On my desk, beside my CEO nameplate, sat an empty picture frame. It had once been reserved for the termination letter that started it all. But maybe, just maybe, it was meant for something else. Something earned. Dinner tonight? I asked her. Let's go to that little Italian place. The one where Dad told me to give up on finance. I own it now. The sun dipped lower behind the city, casting gold across the glass towers. Tomorrow would bring new business challenges and maybe a new chapter in the Foster family. But tonight, I'd be more than a seat. I'd be a daughter and proof that success isn't just survival. It's transformation. The next morning, the headlines exploded. Wilson Global CEO revealed. Fired daughter now father's boss. Alexandra Wilson, from rejection to global powerhouse. Morgan and Sons swallowed by their former junior analyst. By 9 a.m., Patricia had declined over a dozen interview requests. My phone hadn't stopped ringing. Ms. Wilson, she said through the intercom, your father's here. He has the envelope. Send him in. He walked in slower than before, less pride, more humility. In his hands were two things, my 6-year-old termination letter and the signed contract for his new position. I read everything about you last night, he said softly. What you built. What you changed. All the things I said would fail. Worked. I motioned to the chair. And he held up the contract. I want to earn it. I want to learn. From you. It won't be easy, I said. Shared cubicle. Long hours. No exceptions. Like you had to. Right then Mom burst in with a newspaper in hand. Have you seen this? They're calling you the Phoenix of Finance. She froze at the sight of Dad. Oh, Richard. It's okay, I said. Dad just accepted an entry-level position. Asia Division. Her eyes went wide. You're staying? As her employee. He nodded. If she'll have me. I've got a lot to learn. The intercom crackled again. Ms. Wilson, the board is ready for your integration presentation. I stood. Dad, your flight to Shanghai leaves tomorrow. Patricia will coordinate. Oh, and I handed him a small box. Your new business cards, Junior Analyst Foster. He opened the box and stared at the title. Said everything. Thank you, Alexandra. I mean, Ms. Wilson. One more thing, I said, holding up the empty frame from my desk. This was meant for the letter you fired me with. But if you do well, maybe it'll hold something else. Your first performance review is in 6 months. Make it frame-worthy. As he left, Mom lingered. You're really giving him a second chance? No, I said. I'm giving him what he never gave me, an opportunity to prove himself fairly. My phone buzzed again. Thomas Chen's message. Your story inspired the team. Thank you for showing us what we almost lost. I looked out at the skyline again. Mom, dinner tonight? She smiled knowingly. The same Italian place? The one where Dad told me to quit. Yes. But tonight we celebrate what happens when you don't listen to doubt. Outside, workers replaced the Morgan and Sons signage with Wilson Global. A new era was beginning, for the company and for us. My father would finally learn what I'd always known. Success isn't about power or pride. It's about vision, effort, and the strength to rise when the world counts you out. I pressed the intercom. Patricia, set up weekly mentoring sessions with Junior Analyst Foster. Pause. Let's show him what his failed daughter can really teach him.